Well, welcome everybody. I see a few people just joining in. If you didn't hear my little spiel, we're going to use props today. We're going to be doing some twisting today. So definitely you'll need a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, grab a couple of pillows, grab blocks or something that mimics blocks like books or a sturdy water bottle. And if you have a blanket, grab a blanket. And as per usual, often what I offer in my classes is ultimately what I'm working on or what I find that I need. So chances are if I need it, you all probably need it too. So today I wanted to focus on twisting. So we'll do a lot of twists throughout our practice today. And we'll, as normal, we'll end the practice with about 15 minutes of restorative yoga. And for anyone that hasn't met me, I'm Jenna. Welcome. As a reminder, everything that I offer is an option. This is your practice. You know your body better than I do. So please do what you need to keep yourself supported and take care of yourself. All right, without any more, we'll go ahead and begin. So today we're going to start lying down on our backs. So you can come to lie all the way down. And we will have a block or a pillow nearby. And let's bend our knees and place our feet on our mat. And I'll invite you to take the palms of your hands and place them on your rib cage. And your hands are they're just resting on the rib cage. They're not really doing anything else. And see if you can just notice your breath for the next 10 cycles of breath. You might start to feel how your rib cage expands when you inhale and how it closes and softens as you exhale. And maybe you can notice if your ribs are moving, like if you feel them moving out to the sides, like right and left. Or maybe it feels like your ribs are moving up and down, like towards your head and towards your feet. Just notice what you do naturally. And then for the next few breaths, I'll invite you to breathe so that your ribs are expanding from side to side. So that when you inhale, your rib cage widens from right to left into your hands. And when you exhale, your rib cage closes in. And when you inhale, your rib cage widens from right to left. And when you exhale, your rib cage closes in towards the midline. Try a few more breaths like that. Okay, now I'll invite you to breathe in a way using the back of your ribs. So when you inhale, think about the back side of your rib cage pressing into your mat. And when you exhale, you might feel it lift slightly. You might feel a little less movement in your hands now. Inhale, let the back of the rib cage press into the mat. Exhale, breathe it back in. And a few more times. Inhale, see if you can press the back of your rib cage into your mat. And one last time. Okay, now that we've started to see the movement of our ribs, the direction that they tend to move as we breathe, I'll invite you to breathe in a way so that when you inhale, your ribs expand 360. So the back, the sides, and the front. Slowly inhale. Slowly exhale. When you inhale, breathe into your hands. Breathe into the back of the mat. Breathe into your side. And exhale, close everything back in. A few more rounds just like that. Inhale, breathe the ribs into the hands. Breathe the ribs into the back. Breathe the ribs into the side. And exhale, close it back in. And one last time, big inhale. Big exhale. You can release your hands from your ribs, and let's reach the hands towards the backs of the thighs and just hug the knees in. Rock from side to side. You can also reach for your shin bones if that's better. Massage the lower back into your mat. And then place your feet down on your mat. Grab your block or your pillow. We're going to place it in between our thighs. So anything that you can sort of wedge in there so your thighs have something to firm themselves around. We'll take our arms out to a T shape. And then you're going to lift your knees up and bring your legs into like a tabletop. Let your thighs firmly squeeze that block and slowly let your knees fall over to the left and let them just merely hover off of the ground. You may not go that far, that's okay. And then come back to the center, draw the navel into the spine, keep squeezing your block. Let the knees fall over to the right, just as far as you can go without plopping your knees to the ground. So using your abdominals to control this movement. And then squeeze it back into the center. Let's try this 2 more times each side. Knees slowly drift over to the left. Exhale, bring it right back to center. Keep squeezing that block as you let your knees drift over to the right, hovering off the ground, squeezing the navel in. And then right back to center. Last time, knees drift over to the left, just hovering off the ground. And back to center. And last time to the right, knees drift over to the right. And back to center. You can place your feet back down on your mat and remove that block. And we're going to pick our hips up and move our hips over to the right side of the mat. So you're scooting them over. And then let your knees fall over to the left, stacking the knees one on top of the other. Get your knees all the way over. So even if it means your right shoulder lifts off the mat, that's okay. Stacking right knee on top of left knee. Knees are in line with your navel, just about. And then reach your right hand up towards the ceiling. Turn your palm over to the right, and then slowly let that arm float down to the ground. Glue down through the shoulder and let the rest of the arm follow after. And we'll stay here for about 5 breaths. Finding breaths that are slow and expansive. And continuing to keep an awareness in the rib cage as you breathe. Slowly bring your knees and your hips back to the center. Pick your hips up and move them over to the left. Scoot them over to the left side of your mat. And then let the knees fall to the right. Stack your left knee on top of your right knee and feel that your knees are in line with your navel. And feel that even your hips are stacked. So sometimes the left hip kind of lags back and the left knee kind of lags back. See if you can literally move it all the way over. So the left knee's right on top of the right. And then in your left hip's on top of the right hip. And then lift your left arm up so your left shoulder is lifted. Turn your palm to the left side and then let the palm float down towards the ground. So your shoulder may or may not touch the ground. That's okay. We'll stay here for about 5 breaths. You can look up towards the sky or maybe over towards your left shoulder. Continuing to allow your rib cage to expand as you inhale. And allow the rib cage to close as you exhale. And as that rib cage closes in, you might even find yourself going a little deeper into your twist when you exhale. When we twist, we're sort of like wringing out our torso like a towel, or really wringing out the intestines. So when we're aware of the rib cage and when we can move where the rib cage is in our torso, we can make a little more space for the rest of the body to follow and twist. And let's bring the knees and the hips back to the center. You can take a hold of the backs of your thighs or your shin bones and rock yourself up to sit. And we will come on to our hands and knees now. So setting up any sort of support under the knees if you need it. Coming into a tabletop position, we'll bring our knees under our hips and our wrist under our shoulders. Okay, and let's take a few rounds of cat and cow. So as you inhale, bring your belly down and reach your heart forward. And as you exhale, pull the belly up and in, look down towards the belly. Inhale to cow, bring the belly down, let the heart reach forward. Exhale to cat, pull the belly up and in, look down towards the belly. And a few more times, just taking this at your own pace, articulating through your spine, actively pressing your hands, your feet, your ankles into your mat. And letting your breath guide you from one movement to the next. Come back to a neutral spine. Open the knees a little wider and let's sit back to a child's pose. Rest your forehead on your mat or maybe rest it down on a block. And let's take 3 deep inhales. Sending your breath into your back body as you inhale. And as you exhale, maybe melting into your child's pose even more. One more breath here. And slowly bring yourself up to hands and knees. Okay, firmly root down into your left palm. Take your right hand to your right hip and start to peel your chest open to the right. Draw your right elbow back into space. Stack the right shoulder on top of the left shoulder. So we're opening up to the right for a twist. And then maybe you'll reach the right hand up towards the sky. Actively push into that left hand like you're pushing the ground away. And then pull the belly up and in. Breathe here. And one more breath here. You can place your right hand back on your hip and then turn the right shoulder back to face the ground. Take the right hand back down to your mat. Okay, firmly press into your right palm. Take your left hand to your hip. Peel your chest open to the left. Draw your left elbow back into space and lean your left shoulder back so it stacks on top of your right shoulder. Use your right hand to actively push the ground away. And then maybe your left hand reaches up towards the sky. So there's a lot of engagement here. We're not just folding or plopping into a twist, but we're keeping our energy active by pushing into the ground. And then at the same time, leaning back into space. Pull the belly up and in. And then take the left hand down to your mat. Come back to neutral. Okay, now we're going to take the right foot in between the hands. You can get a block and place your hand on that block on the inside of the right foot. And we'll repeat that again. Take the right hand to the hip. Peel the chest open to the right. This time, check in with the hips a little more now that we're in an asymmetrical pose. So notice where this right hip is and see if you can guide it to be in line with your left hip. So maybe you pull it back a little and then reach the right hand up towards the sky. Keep pushing into the left hand or into the block and keep hugging the right thigh in towards the midline. So try not to let that knee split open. And now take your fingertips down to the right side of your rib cage and grip onto your body or grip onto your rib cage. Physically move your ribs back into space even more and see if you can twist a little further. And then maybe your hand stays here or maybe it reaches up to the sky. Just 3 more breaths here. And then place the right hand down, come back to hands and knees. As you inhale, let's take cow. And as you exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Left side. Place the left foot in between the hands. Take your right hand onto a block or the mat if you don't have one. Take your left hand to your hip and start to peel your chest open to the left. Notice where your left hip is. You might need to pull it back into space a little. And then reach the left hand up towards the sky if that feels okay. Keep pressing into your right hand like you're pushing the ground away, and keep hugging your left inner thigh in towards the midline. So the legs should really be active here. Now take the left fingertips down to the left side of your rib cage and grip onto your rib cage and physically move your ribs back. So you're drawing the ribs back towards the spine to see if you can twist a little further. And then maybe the left hand stays here, or maybe it reaches up towards the sky. 3 more breaths here. You can always take your gaze down if this is straining your neck. And then place the left hand back down, come back to hands and knees. As you inhale, let's take a cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. When you're ready, tuck your toes under, lift your hips up and back for our first downward facing dog. Feel free to find some movement if it's useful. Giving your body some time to adjust to being inverted. And allowing there to be some softness or a bend in your knees. Couple more breaths here. And then let's bend the knees even more and start to walk the feet towards the hands. Find your way into a forward fold. Let your knees stay soft as you hang over your legs. Feel free to sway side to side. Staying folded over, we're going to reach for a block or a water bottle or something. And you're going to place that block on the outside of your right foot. Take it to the highest setting. And then you're going to bend your left knee and kind of stick your right hip back. I'm going to take my left hand to the block and take my right hand to my hip. So pardon, the block is outside of your right foot, but depending on your body, you might have to move it forward a little. The left knee is bent. And I'm peeling my chest open to the right. So notice here the back is rounded. We want to lengthen the spine, lengthen out through the crown of the head. And then maybe you'll stay here. Maybe you'll reach the right hand to the sky, right shoulder stacking on top of left. And trying to avoid that left shoulder kind of shrugging into the ear, take your left shoulder and move it back into the socket. And then pull the navel into the spine and breathe here for a few more breaths. And bring your right hand down to the block. Let's try the other side. Take that block, move it outside of your left foot and slightly forward. Push your right hand into the block, bend through your right knee, and then take your left hand to your hip and peel your chest open to the left side. Keep pushing your right hand into that block like you're pushing the ground away. And maybe the left hand reaches up towards the sky. Notice if you're rounding through your back, and if you are, think about lengthening your spine all the way out through the crown of the head. And just a couple more breaths here. And then place your left hand back down. You can move your block out of the way and slowly roll up the spine. Come to stand in Tadasana, mountain pose at the top of your mat. Feet can be together or about as wide as your hips. Shoulders are pressing down. As you inhale, let's reach the arms out and up. And as you exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift up halfway to lengthen your spine. Exhale, take your hands down to your mat or your blocks and step your left foot back. Find a low lunge. Root down into the left palm. Let's reach the right hand high for a twist. Pull the right hip back, hug the right thigh in. Breathe in. Root down to the balls of your feet, and you're gonna rise up by lifting your torso, swimming your right arm back and reaching your left arm forward. Your back knee might bend a little bit like mine is. We're twisting over to the right here. 3 more breaths. Now swim your right arm forward, swim your left arm back, and rotate your back heel down for warrior 2, aligning your front heel to the arch of your back foot. Take a breath in and a breath out. Firming up the left leg, bending into the right knee. Cartwheel the hands down to your mat. Step your right foot back to a downward facing dog. As you inhale, roll forward, come into plank pose. As you exhale, knees can stay up or soften down. Lower all the way down to your belly. Root into your feet so your kneecaps lift, and then lift head, neck, and shoulders off your mat, baby cobra. When you're ready, lower back down, tuck your toes under. Push yourself back up, come back to downward dog. Take a full breath in, and a full breath out. Bend your knees, look forward. You can walk or hop your feet towards your hands. Inhale, let's lift up about halfway, lengthening the spine. Exhale, fold forward, take your hands to your mat or your blocks. Step your right foot back, find a low lunge. Root into the right palm as you reach the left hand high, finding your twist. Take a breath in and a breath out. Breathing in, breathing out. Firmly root down into the balls of both feet. Swim your left arm back, reach your right arm forward. So we're keeping that twist as we rise up into a twisted high lunge. You might soften your back knee a little like I am. Feel your right hip inching forward as your left hip inches back. 2 more breaths here. Swim your right arm back, swim your left arm forward as we rotate the back heel down for warrior 2. Aligning the front heel to the arch of your back foot. Bending into the left knee so it's over the ankle and firming up that right leg. Find a steady gaze out over your left hand and breathe. Let's stay here for 3 more breaths. Cartwheel your hands down to your mat. Step your left foot back to downward dog. As you inhale, come forward to plank. As you exhale, knees can stay up or soften down. Lower all the way down to your belly. Lift your head, neck, and shoulders off your mat. You can find a baby cobra, or you might push into your hands a little more and find your full cobra. Lower the chest back down to your mat. Tuck your toes under. Push yourself up and back. We'll come back to downward dog. Take a full breath in and a full breath out. Bend your knees, look forward. You can walk or hop your feet towards your hands. Inhale, lift halfway up. Let's lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale the arms up, roll up your spine. Exhale the arms down. Take your feet as close together as you can. And pardon me, it's getting hot. We're gonna take the feet as close together as we can. And then you're gonna reach your arms up and sit your hips back into a chair pose. So weight back in the heels. Now take your right hand to your right hip and take your left hand outside of your right thigh, peeling the rib cage, the whole torso over to face the right. Try to keep your hips in line, so inch that left hip back a little. And then maybe the hips sit a little bit lower, belly pulling in. 2 more breaths here. Now keep your twist, keep your right knee bent. You're gonna reach your left hand down to your mat or your block. You're gonna peel the left foot up and step it back into a twisted lunge. Take a breath in. As you exhale, soften the left knee down, untuck the toes. Let your pelvis move forward and then reach your right arm back. Some of you will reach back and reach for the foot if you can. If not, just keep reaching the right hand back into space, just like I am. And here we'll stay for 5 full breaths. You could also take your right hand to your hip if that is more supportive. Okay, now take your right hand back down. So both hands are framing the front foot. You can tuck the left toes under, lift the hips up and back, and hop that left foot in so we're in a pyramid pose. You want to hop the left foot in until it can be grounded. And then look at your feet and make sure your feet are on railroad tracks instead of a tightrope. Okay, now keeping your left hand on a block or whatever support you have underneath it, push your left hand into that support. Take your right hand to your hip and peel your chest over to the right. Now you might feel a little wobbly here, so you might have to press into your feet a little more to find that stability. Your right hand can remain on your hip. It can also reach up. And we'll stay here for 3 more breaths. Kind of the theme throughout this twisting again is to notice if you're hunching the back. If you are hunching the back and rounding it, chances are your left hand needs to come up a little higher. If you don't have any props today, you could place that hand on your shin bone. Lengthening the spine. Okay, now take the right hand back down. Let's bring the hands back down to the mat. Soften the front knee and then step the back foot forward. Find your fold. With an inhale, we'll lift up about halfway. And with an exhale, we'll fold forward. Inhale the arms up as you roll up the spine. Exhale, sit back to chair pose. This is our last little series standing here. Take your left hand to your hip, your right hand outside of your left thigh, and start to peel your chest over to the left. Notice that right knee, right hip creeping forward, pull it back so knees and hips are in line. Navel pulling into spine. And then let's take the gaze down. You'll take your right hand down to a block or your mat. You're going to peel your right foot up and step it back, landing in your twisted lunge. When you're ready, we'll soften the back knee down and untuck the toes. You'll want to let your hips move forward just slightly. As you reach your left arm up and around, maybe it reaches back for the foot, maybe it just reaches back into space or even rests on your hip. So letting that pelvis move forward. Couple more breaths here. Reach your left arm up and around. We'll prepare for our pyramid pose. So hands are on the mat or maybe they're on blocks. Tuck your right toes under, lift that knee up. Hop your right foot in until your back heel is fully grounded. Check to make sure your feet are on railroad tracks rather than a tightrope. And then move your right hand in towards your left foot just a little. Push into the right hand, peel your chest open to the left. Find length in your spine by reaching out through the crown of the head. And maybe the left hand reaches up towards the sky. A few breaths here. Think about pressing down into the mound of the left big toe. And think about pressing down into the outer right edge of your right heel. Or really the whole outer edge of your right foot, that pinky toe edge. And let's take the gaze down. You can soften the left knee and step your back foot forward. With an inhale, lift up about halfway, lengthen your spine. As you exhale, bend your knees, take your hands down to your mat. You can step back to plank pose, and we'll move through one final Vinyasa flow. Any version that you choose. And once you find your downward dog, see if you can be in downward dog for 5 full breaths. The shirt is suffocating me. Taking your awareness back into your rib cage, just like when we started class. So as you inhale, letting the ribs fill the back body. And as you exhale, drawing the ribs back into the midline. A few more breaths. And soften your knees down to your mat. Sit back to a child's pose. Take a few moments to rest, to honor however it is that you're feeling right now. We did a lot of twisting. We're not quite done twisting, but maybe you just notice and honor all the twisting you've done so far. It's a great way to sort of cleanse, detoxify. And for some of us, twisting can be really intense. Slowly walk your hands in towards your body and start to roll up through your spine. Okay. I'm going to give us a few extra minutes of the restorative yoga today because 1, twisting is intense, and 2, I like to let us get the full, to get a good amount of time in our restorative twist to really get all the benefits. So that being said, you can take a hold of your whatever you have that's mimicking a bolster, and then either a blanket or a pillow. And I'll show you where you're going, and then depending on what you have, you can make it work. All right, so this is my bolster. I'm gonna let the long side, so the short edge of the bolster is gonna come towards my hip. Okay, and then I'm going to take the outer part of my left hip towards that short edge. I'm gonna get my blanket. You could use a pillow. This is gonna fall in between the knees, and the knees are just gonna fall towards the ground. Then twist your whole torso to face your bolster and give yourself a few breaths here. Come up high onto your fingertips so you can really lengthen your spine. And then very slowly, you want to think about taking your navel and putting that onto the bolster. It won't actually happen. It's just where you're headed. So the whole front side of the torso comes to rest on your bolster. You can have your knees hugged in closer or further away, whatever feels better. And then for a lot of us, resting the left cheek might be supportive. You could also rest the right cheek. Now, if the floor feels far away, you might get a block and put this block under your bolster so you have a little bit of height, right? So the idea is like if forcing yourself to the ground feels like too much, then just bring the ground closer to your body. And then working with whatever homemade props you have at home. Okay, so once you get settled into this twist, now we're gonna stay here for a few minutes. So during this time, I'll invite you to give yourself several rounds of breath to settle into this. Let your body sink into your props. Notice if your elbows and your forearms are propping you up. And if they are, can you merely let your elbows and forearms rest on the ground and let the ground support the weight of your arms? Notice if you're gripping your thighs or your butt. Notice any areas where you might be gripping or tensing, and see if you can soften. Now, if you're on the same side as me, that means the left hip is on the ground. Then you want to also allow the right shoulder to melt down. Slow, steady breaths. And as we find these moments of stillness and silence, you might notice where the mind wanders to, where the kinds of thoughts that are pouring in. Or perhaps the lack of thoughts. And very slowly bring your forehead back down to your bolster. Walk your hands back so they're under your shoulders. And then push into your hands to roll yourself up. And we'll do the other side. So switching over, so the other hip, for me it's the right hip, is facing the short edge of your bolster. Turn your torso to face the bolster. Come up high onto your fingertips and let your spine lengthen for a moment. And then when you're ready, think about taking the navel down to the bolster first, and the rest of the body to follow after: belly, ribs, and head. Your knees can be in line with your hips. They can be closer to you or further away, whatever feels better. And you might rest your right cheek on the mat or your left cheek. Give yourself several rounds of breath to settle into this supported twist. If your right hip is on the ground, then you'll want to think about letting the left shoulder be heavy, allowing that shoulder to melt down. Again, you might just check in and notice if your elbows, if your arms are really holding yourself up. And if they are, can you allow your pillow to support the weight of your torso and the ground to support the weight of your arms, so they're just resting on the ground? Gently bring your forehead to your bolster. Walk your hands back underneath your shoulders and push into your hands to roll yourself up. Okay. We are now going to come to lie down on our backs. And all that you'll need is a blanket and a block or a pillow. So first, let's just lie on the back, and you can take your hands to your kneecaps to lift your feet off the ground and make a few circles here, massaging your lower back into the ground. Massaging the sacrum into the ground. Right, just giving our spine a moment to come back to a neutral place. And now you can hug your knees into your chest. And then place your feet on your mat. We're gonna do what we did to start with class, except this time adding in a little more support. So I'm gonna get my blanket. I have my blanket rather thick. The thickness of your blanket will depend on your shoulders. I'm gonna set my blanket up just outside of my left shoulder. And then I'm gonna pick my left shoulder up and move my blanket in towards me so that my left shoulder can then rest on the blanket. Okay, now we're gonna wiggle our hips to the left a little. Take that block in between your knees and let your knees fall to the right. So the block or the pillow, and then reach the left arm up, turn the left palm to the side and let that arm float down. And maybe you have to hug your blanket in a little closer so that your left shoulder is resting on that blanket. And the knees are still stacked, the hips are still stacked, but this time we have a block or a pillow supporting that space. Feel free to look up or look to the left. We won't stay here for quite as long. This twist is a little more supportive than the twist we were just in. Of course, it could feel similar in your body. At this point in class, see if you can let your breath just be easy, natural. And now take your gaze back to the sky. We're going to shift our hips and knees back to the center and prepare for the other side. So you'll want to get your blanket, move it over to your right, set your blanket up just outside of your right shoulder. And if you can, tuck it under that shoulder a little more. Wiggle your hips to the right just a little bit. Take your blocker pillow in between your knees and let your knees fall over to the left. So knees are stacked, hips are stacked. Reach your right hand up towards the sky. Turn the palm to the right and let that arm float down to the ground. And so the blanket is supporting underneath your right shoulder. And of course, you can look over to the right or you can look up to the sky. And again, this one will only be here for about a minute or so. And now you can gently make your way back to the center. And let's draw the knees into the chest one final time. You might enjoy happy baby by opening your knees towards your armpits and reaching your hands for your outer feet, your ankles, or even the backs of your thighs. And then we will settle into our final resting pose, Shavasana. So as a reminder, you can lie flat on your back with your legs bent or straight. Or if you're like me, you might prefer to lie on your side. We'll only be here for a couple minutes. These last few moments of class are a meditation, essentially. Allow your thoughts to come and go. Allow your breath to be present, but not controlled. And see if you can settle into just the awareness of your natural being. Simply being aware of your body, aware of the sensations in your body, aware of your thoughts, aware of your breath. Settling into this awareness without any attachment. Slowly start to invite some movement back into your body. If you're not already on your side, you can roll to either side. And then press into your hands and bring yourself up to sit. We'll bring our practice to a close. Let's take the palms together at our hearts, softly closing the eyes. We'll chant Om one time to close our practice. You can join me or you can listen. First, take a breath in and let it out. Breathing in for Om. Om. Thank you all for practicing with me today. I see Chanel, I see Laura, I see a really pretty black and white